Gold Rush exclusive. Karla Ann worried Rick Ness's hunch may have dried up on the next gold rush this week, airing on Discovery. We follow up the Rick Ness hunch storyline with Karla Ann at Duncan and the Cheap Cut. And as TV shows as exclusive clip shows, Karla Ann is worried as gold is MIA in the sluice box. This lack of evident gold alarms her as she radios Rick to come and see what's going on. During the last 4 weeks, the lower Duncan Creek area called the Cheap Cut has been where Rick Ness and his crew that includes Carl Rusk, Karla Ann, and Chris Pruse have been mining. He scouted this moraine spot, where gold runs off the mountain, and he felt there was more gold to be found. Pruse was not liking the hunch remark that Ness threw out in last week's episode. Ness's hunches did not pan out last season. Now this week, Karla Ann is on high alert in TV show's ace clip where the fine gold, always an indicator, is now not showing up. In the preview below, we are in the gold room as Karla Ann washes concentrate from 2 days of running to separate out the fine gold. We open with her looking concerned. She says, "These are our nuggets. It looks good, however, they don't weigh much." In gold mining, bigger isn't always better. She adds, "It's the fine gold that adds up." She says, "We've been doing cleanups every 20 hours just to stay consistent and try to read the ground a little bit better. But for whatever reason, this cleanup's not looking so hot. I'm not sure why. It's that fine gold that usually is there, it's just not here this time." Karla Ann radios Rick and shares the news. Up until now, it had been a consistent yield of fine gold. They are worried this ends their good luck streak. Rick Ness ran 7,000 yards and needed at least 7 ounces. He closed out the episode with a gold weigh-in of 82.37 ounces. That's $144,000 worth of gold. His biggest haul of the season. Also last week, we saw Tony Beats move heaven and earth to cash in on lost gold as Rick Ness followed a hunch. Over at Elkhorn Mountains in Oregon, the veteran crew lead by Fred Lewis are working hard while dealing with compliances. Freddie Dodge's nephew Kendall Madden and Fred are guiding the crew, Johnny Stans, Stephen Generally, Kyle Pletzk, and Stuart McKenzie. All of them are hoping for a brighter future. Meanwhile, Parker Schnebel, though not featured on the episode, is still tops in the leaderboard for gold recovered. Beats needs a 3,000-ounce season gold and had less than a quarter of his target as of last week. Last week, we saw he netted an ounce for every 100 yards. He resurrected an old plant to speed things up. Kevin and Mike were left with a hopper removal to balance the heavy load after trying to move it unsuccessfully. Tune in Friday to see how Ness ultimately fares, and if the Beats luck also keeps on the good foot. The all-new Gold Rush airs Friday at 8 p.m. ET/PT on Discovery. In addition to watching the series on Discovery, viewers can check out new episodes each week on Discovery Joe. Viewers can join the conversation on social media by using the hashtag #GoldRush and follow Gold Rush on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for the latest updates. Gold Rush exclusive. Karla Ann worried Rick Ness's hunch may have dried up as the harsh winter winds sweep across the barren wilderness. Gold miners on Discovery's Gold Rush are never far from the edge of disaster. The pressure is always on to strike it rich, and with each season, the stakes grow higher, the risks steeper, and the rewards that much more elusive. In an exclusive interview, Karla Ann, a seasoned mining expert and one of Rick Ness's most trusted team members, opens up about the growing concerns over Rick's ambitious plan to hit the mother lode. She's worried Rick's hunch may have dried up. For Karla, it's not just a matter of gold, but survival. The mining season is nearing its critical point, and with every passing day, Rick Ness's bold moves seem to be unraveling. Karla, who's been a part of Rick's team for several seasons now, is no stranger to the dangers that come with trying to strike it rich in the unforgiving terrain. But even she is beginning to wonder if the man she's trusted for so long has pushed his luck a little too far. The dreamer behind the Hunch, Ness, has always been known for his gut instinct, a hunch that often turns into a goldmine. But as Karla Ann explains, this time things feel different. I've seen Rick take risks before, but there's something about this season that has me worried, Karla says. His hunch has been his guiding light, but this year, I'm not sure that light is shining as bright as it used to. It's no secret that Rick has been chasing an elusive target in the wilds of the Klondike, and his drive to find the big strike has been unwavering. But Karla, who's worked closely with Rick on countless projects, admits that the situation is more dire than it seems. Crew is getting frustrated, and the gold just isn't there like we thought it would be. It's like a storm that we can't seem to outrun. The strain of constant failure weighs heavily on Karla. She's watched Rick put everything on the line, using his gut to guide the way forward, but her trust in his instincts is starting to fray. I think he's starting to doubt himself, Karla confides. He keeps saying, it's going to pay off. We're close, but I'm not sure I believe that anymore. It's hard to ignore the signs that maybe it's just not there. Rick's ambition has always been one of his most remarkable qualities, but Karla's perspective shows the darker side of such relentless drive. The weight of expectations, both from his team and himself, is starting to create cracks in Rick's confident facade. The pressure of the job, the dynamic between Rick and Karla is something of a mentor-protege relationship. She respects his leadership, but isn't afraid to speak her mind when it counts. This season, that's become especially important. Rick has always been a leader who listens, but lately, it feels like he's listening to his gut more than to reason, Karla observes. That gut has served him well in the past, but this year, it feels like we're running on fumes. It's clear that Karla's concerns are deeply rooted in the growing tension among the team. As the gold becomes more elusive, tempers flare, and the morale of the crew begins to plummet. The miners, used to the peaks and valleys of their challenging work, are now facing what feels like a dry season, and when the crew's energy starts to fade, the effects ripple through every decision. We're all in this together, Karla adds, her voice tinged with worry. If one person falters, it can bring the whole team down. And right now, I feel like we're all teetering on the edge. The dangers of a lost season are real. If Rick's hunch doesn't pan out, it could cost the entire crew everything they've worked for. The equipment, the time, the money, all could be lost if the gold remains out of reach. The uneasy alliance zone of the most significant challenges of working on a mining crew is maintaining trust under pressure. With the clock ticking and gold less and less visible in the dirt, Karla knows that Rick's ability to rally the crew will be the difference between success and failure. But that's becoming harder to do as his faith in his hunch begins to fray. There's a fine line between confidence and stubbornness, Karla says. I think Rick's been pushing so hard to prove that his instincts were right, he might be ignoring the reality of the situation. There's only so much we can do when the gold isn't showing up. Despite her concerns, Karla remains loyal to Rick. She understands the weight of leadership, the pressure of carrying not just the crew's expectations, but his own. Rick's a good guy, and he wants to make this work. He's not just out there for the gold. He genuinely cares about the people he works with, but sometimes, that desire to be the one who strikes it big clouds his judgment. Karla's concerns are compounded by the shifting dynamics within the team. When things aren't going well, everyone looks to the leader for guidance. But Karla feels like the crew is growing disillusioned, and it's a feeling she's seeing reflected in Rick's eyes. I've seen the spark in Rick's eyes when he believes in something, and I'm not sure I'm seeing that right now, Karla admits. He's becoming more distant, more frustrated. It's hard to watch him struggle. But I also know that sometimes, the hardest thing to do is admit when it's time to cut your losses. The road ahead as the season progresses, Karla finds herself in a difficult position. Her loyalty to Rick is undeniable. But her pragmatism tells her that the crew can't continue down a path of blind optimism if it's leading them to failure. "We need to be realistic," she says, her voice growing more resolute. "We've put in the work, but at some point, we need to step back and assess whether the hunch is just that, a hunch, or if it's something that can lead us to real gold." Rick's belief in his instincts is one of his greatest strengths, but Karla knows that gold mining isn't about believing in your hunch alone. It's about reading the land, listening to your crew, and adapting when things don't go as planned. She's seen firsthand how quickly things can unravel, and with the season's end fast approaching, the window for success is closing rapidly. There's a lot of pressure on Rick right now, Karla reflects, and it's not just his hunch. It's the weight of everything on his shoulders. But we can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it's not. We're running out of time, and we need a new plan. Whether Rick Ness can salvage his season or whether his once trustworthy instincts have truly dried up remains to be seen. But for Karla Ann, the reality is clear. The gold rush is never a guarantee, and sometimes the bravest thing a leader can